Ever since the first crypto bull run in 2013, Bitcoin enthusiasts have believed that it's only a matter of time before we see a government hold BTC on its balance sheets. For a long while, this was nothing more than a pipe dream, but all that changed when publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy, Square, and Tesla began adding BTC to their balance sheets last year. Suddenly, the adoption of Bitcoin by a country became not only possible, but likely. Lo and behold, this is exactly what we are seeing today. Ground zero for the governmental Bitcoin adoption has been Latin America, with El Salvador leading the charge as the first country to make BTC legal tender. This move has inspired many other Latin American countries to tread a similar path, and it's possible that this trend will find its way to other countries on other continents. Today, I'm going to take a closer look at which Latin American countries are likely to adopt Bitcoin next, what hurdles they and El Salvador are likely to face, and what effects this could have on the crypto market. Before we head down south, there's something you should know about. I am an educator and an entertainer, and that means this video isn't going to give you any financial favors. Everything here is just to help you DYOR. So if you need financial advice, be sure to give your financial advisor a call. If my face is new to you, my name is Guy and crypto is what I do. The Coin Bureau has enough quality crypto content to fill a dozen weekends. Coins, tokens, reviews, useful tools, market moves, weekly news. The crypto ride never ends. If crypto gives you a kick, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell so you don't miss the next flick. Note that I've left a few timestamps in the video timeline that you can use to skim the topics in today's diatribe. If you see something you like, don't let me stop you from skipping ahead. Just remember that watching the whole way through is the best way to grow what's sitting in your head. Now that you're all set, let me tell you about El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption and which countries are probably next. It all began at the Bitcoin conference in Miami in early June. On June 5th, the final day of the event, Strike founder Jack Mallers was presenting the incredible adoption his app has seen in El Salvador since launching there in March this year. For those who don't know, Strike is a mobile payments app which leverages Bitcoin's Lightning Network. Strike makes it possible to send both USD and BTC peer-to-peer with zero fees, and the only information required to create a wallet is a name and phone number. In his presentation, Jack explained that he had been contacted by the El Salvadoran government via Twitter shortly after the Strike app launched in the country. While Jack initially, quote, pissed his pants, thinking he had gotten in legal trouble, it was actually because President Nayib Bukele wanted to speak with him personally about improving access to financial services in El Salvador. Now, this is because about 70% of El Salvador's population is unbanked, and nearly 20% of its GDP is accounted for by remittance payments, i.e., money sent from the United States and other countries by those who have emigrated for work. After seeing how popular Strike was in El Salvador, Nayib asked Jack if he would be on board with helping him draft a bill to make BTC legal tender in the country. Jack accepted, and this bill was revealed in a pre-recorded video clip at the end of Jack's presentation. In it, President Bukele explained that he would be tabling a bill to make Bitcoin legal tender in the country in the coming days. On Wednesday, June the 8th, El Presidente sent the Bitcoin bill to El Salvador's Congress. The very next day, the bill passed with a supermajority vote. In addition to making BTC legal tender, El Salvador's Bitcoin bill allows for the self-custody of BTC, eliminates capital gains taxes on BTC, allows taxes to be paid in BTC, and will also see the government roll out educational programs about cryptocurrencies for its citizens. Most importantly, the bill mandates every public and private institution in the country to support Bitcoin payments by September 7, 2021. The 24 hours that followed were eventful, to say the least. For example, the Poolin Bitcoin mining pool stored the historic event in Bitcoin block number 686938. It contains a headline from an El Salvadoran newspaper which translates to, quote, Assembly approves Bitcoin law. Now, this is in homage to Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto, who put a 2009 headline from The Times in the first Bitcoin block, which read, quote, "Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks." As expected, BTC printed a nice pump in response to the news. What was not expected was Bukele's move to make the government's own geothermal energy company mine BTC using volcano heat. And then came the critics. Not everyone is a fan of El Salvador's move to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. For starters, it seems that El Salvador's president has had his fair share of controversies. According to CoinDesk, Bukele has a history of authoritarian tendencies. Examples include sending the military to El Salvador's parliament to motivate politicians to push through a bill for security equipment, attempting to remove judges from the Supreme Court that voted against his policies, and enacting some of the harshest lockdowns in response to the pandemic, which saw thousands of El Salvadorans detained, some of whom even had their driving licenses revoked. More recently, El Salvador announced that any adults who want to claim their $30 of free BTC will have to download the government's Bitcoin wallet app, which requires facial recognition to use. This could have some serious ramifications on privacy and economic freedom for El Salvadorans. That said, using the government's Bitcoin wallet app is not mandatory, as pointed out by a recent Cointelegraph article. An opposing political party in El Salvador has also filed a lawsuit against the current administration, which argues that the Bitcoin bill is unconstitutional. What's slightly more concerning is a recent poll of 1,600 El Salvadorans found that more than 80% of them do not want to be paid in BTC, likely because of the asset's incredible volatility. Luckily for them, USD is still legal tender in El Salvador and will continue to be the dominant currency in the country for the foreseeable future, according to Bukele's own trade and investment minister. This is good news for the various dollar-run international organizations that have also taken issue with El Salvador's Bitcoin bill. Just one day after the law was passed, the IMF hinted that El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin could jeopardize its chances of receiving the billion-dollar loan it had been promised as part of the IMF's pandemic relief package. Not surprisingly, the World Bank also denied El Salvador's request for help in implementing Bitcoin payments, citing, quote, environmental and transparency shortcomings. Now, this is a pretty ridiculous statement, given the fact that Bitcoin is the most traceable currency on the planet and also provides additional incentives to create green energy solutions. Now, you can learn more about all that by watching my video about it using the link up there in the top right. Anyways, some critics, such as JP Morgan, have claimed that El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender will offer no benefits to the country at best. Funnily enough, the same report which makes this claim considers the possibility that, quote, this is the beginning of a broader trend about similarly situated smaller nations. It looks like JP Morgan might actually be onto something. After El Salvador's initial announcement, a handful of politicians in neighboring countries added laser eyes to their profile pictures on Twitter, and not just as a show of support. A congressman in Paraguay is currently working towards passing a bill that aims to attract crypto companies of all kinds. For crypto entrepreneurs and businesses, it will offer frictionless domestic and international banking services for fiat and crypto, in addition to its already low corporate tax rate of 10%. For crypto miners, it will give them easy access to the country's cheap energy, 100% of which is generated from renewable sources. Not only that, but Paraguay apparently has so much leftover energy that the government sells nearly 3/4 of it to Argentina and Brazil, quote, almost for free. The bill will be tabled next month, and if successful, the same congressman will be pushing a bill to make BTC legal tender in Paraguay as well. It seems the private sector in Paraguay isn't waiting, however. In mid-June, Paraguay's largest media and entertainment company added support for crypto payments. At the end of June, one of Paraguay's largest online universities did the same. Meanwhile, in Panama, another congressman hopes to add to the crypto competition between countries with a bill that will be presented to Panamanian lawmakers this month. While the exact details of Panama's Bitcoin bill are not yet known, it will attempt to bundle similar perks being offered by Paraguay along with a legal tender designation for BTC. According to the congressman, Bitcoin becoming legal tender should be easier to do because of the way Panama's constitution is written. To top it off, Panama has a reputation as being one of the world's tax havens, with most wealthy individuals and institutions paying zero tax on income and capital gains. The only problem is that Panama's proposed Bitcoin bill is coming from the opposition party. As noted by the congressman, this means they will need to ensure everyone involved is on board before they propose the bill, and even if it passes in Congress, it could still be vetoed by the current president. Multiple lawmakers in Mexico are also hoping to get their country in the Latin American crypto space race. They're facing a fair share of hurdles, given that the Mexican drug cartels have actively been using cryptocurrency to launder money. This is probably why the first crypto bill to hit the table seeks to implement a comprehensive legal framework for cryptocurrencies rather than an all-out adoption of Bitcoin and its associated companies. As with Paraguay, Mexico's private sector is showing serious interest in cryptocurrencies, and the tip of the spear here is Ricardo Pliego, Mexico's third richest man. Ricardo is a long-time fan of Bitcoin, and just last week he announced that he's working on making his bank become the first to accept Bitcoin in Mexico. He also said, quote, "Fiat is a fraud," and that if you invest in Dogecoin, quote, "you'll stay poor." It seems that Mexico's finance minister is a Dogecoin holder because he doesn't seem to be a very big fan of Ricardo's announcement. Jokes aside, the finance minister reiterated that cryptocurrencies cannot be used by financial institutions in Mexico, and that they are also not considered to be currencies or assets of any kind under current regulations. Still, demand for cryptocurrency in Mexico is at an all-time high, especially for dollar-backed stablecoins, which have provided a convenient alternative to centralized dollar payment networks. This brings me to an important topic, and that's why the beginning of Bitcoin adoption by governments is happening in Latin America and not some other continent or country. One of the oldest selling points of cryptocurrency is that it makes it easier to bank the unbanked. Besides payments, cryptocurrencies provide easy access to traditional financial services like lending, borrowing, and saving, thanks to its growing DeFi ecosystem. The only thing you need to use cryptocurrency is an internet connection and a mobile device, and most of the unbanked world meets these minimum criteria. In theory, this means there are no barriers to banking. Just get all the unbanked people to download the appropriate mobile crypto app and off they go. However, this is not so simple in practice, and that's because the real barriers to banking are coming from governments. Governments around the world do not want to give up control of their fiat currencies, and this is why you won't see Bitcoin adopted in countries with their own national currencies anytime soon. This includes countries in North America, Europe, Oceania, and even many countries in Africa and Asia, where most of the unbanked population lives, and where many crypto projects gear their payment solutions towards. As it so happens, the one thing that El Salvador, Panama, Paraguay, and many other Latin American countries have in common is that they all rely heavily on the US dollar, even those which have their own national currencies. This is a problem because it means they often have little to no control over their own monetary policy. Even when they try to influence their own native currency, whatever they do is easily undermined by the supremacy of the US dollar. This also means that these countries must walk on eggshells when engaging with the United States. Stepping out of line can and often does result in harsh sanctions that can't be easily circumvented. Some have gone as far as to say that the dominance of the dollar is what has kept many Latin American countries in their less than optimal conditions, and there's no question that the current setup is far from ideal. For more than a year, the Fed has been printing US dollars like there's no tomorrow, and this is causing a ton of inflation. I covered it in great depth in my video on inflation, and you can watch that later by hitting that link in the top right. The point is that I don't imagine any dollar-dependent country is comfortable with that. When you couple this with the economic devastation caused by the current pandemic worldwide, many Latin American countries are probably thinking that getting off the dollar needs to happen now or never. Besides, there's been so much disruption already that making BTC legal tender barely registers on the Richter scale for the average Latin American citizen. And it has the potential to change their countries for the better. So, what effects could this have on the crypto market? The most significant impact the government adoption of cryptocurrency will have relates not to price, but to regulation and policy, which exist upstream from price action. As we're seeing now, the initial knee-jerk reaction by foreign dollar-driven interests and three-letter financial organizations will be to sanction any countries that adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. Rather than dissuade countries from continuing their crypto adoption, I predict that it will accelerate the process. This is because it will reveal to the world just how corrupt the current financial system is and how badly crypto is needed. Seeing a country like El Salvador freed from the dollar and growing its economy independently thanks to Bitcoin, this will inspire other countries to follow suit, regardless of the threats from above. Once enough countries have adopted Bitcoin and hold it on their balance sheets, the rest of the world will have little choice but to designate BTC as a global currency, even if it's not considered to be one in-house. This will lead to cryptocurrency education on a massive scale as more individuals and institutions start to use it in their daily lives. Given that understanding crypto requires some degree of financial literacy, this will have a huge impact on how the average person spends their money. It will probably make them more prone to investing, and much of that money will probably make its way into cryptocurrency. With so much price discovery coming from individuals and institutions, this should drastically reduce Bitcoin's volatility over time, and this has already begun. Now, it's anyone's guess as to where Bitcoin will top out, but assuming this sort of future takes place, we will no longer be counting Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency in dollars. Everything will be measured in satoshis instead. Then again, we could see a government borrow Google's quantum computer and use it to take down Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to ensure this future never happens. This is just one of the many threats that Bitcoin faces, and you can learn more about those and how they're being addressed by clicking that link up there in the top right. 2021 has been a hell of a year for crypto, and we're still only 6 months in. Of all the developments we've seen so far, El Salvador's decision to make Bitcoin legal tender definitely takes the prize. While there's a lot to say about the man who made it happen, most of the criticisms I've read seem to be taken out of context and do not actually tell the full story of what happened. Nayib Bukele's approval rating is apparently over 90%, despite all of these concerning criticisms, so I suppose it's better to err on the side of caution before casting judgment. It's entirely possible that most of the negative press is just FUD being peddled by the powers that be. El Salvador is the first domino to fall in the final act of the fiat money system, and those who benefit from the status quo are doing all they can to make sure the next domino doesn't go down, and there are many waiting to topple. Besides Paraguay, Panama, and Mexico, there are 16 other Latin American countries that are sick and tired of the US dollar. There is even evidence of this in the Bitcoin bill drafted by Bukele et al., which Jack Mallers highlighted during his presentation in Miami. Quote, "Central banks are increasingly taking actions that may cause harm to the economic stability of El Salvador. In order to mitigate the negative impact from central banks, it becomes necessary to authorize the circulation of a digital currency with a supply that cannot be controlled by any central bank and is only altered in accord with objective and calculable criteria." This is a powerful statement, and it's one that almost anyone can understand and get on board with. Unless your fate is tied to the dollar, of course, in which case you'll do everything and anything to make sure this simple concept never sinks in. Unfortunately for those folks, there's no stopping what has only just begun. If you agree, be sure to smash that like button. While you're down there, you may as well subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell too. You should know that what you see here is only a fraction of what the Coin Bureau has to offer. Banter on Twitter, behind the scenes on TikTok, memes and AMAs on Instagram, and daily crypto updates on Telegram. I even have a weekly newsletter that's jam-packed with the info you need to help you stack more sats. If you want to browse my socials while looking like a cool crypto cat, head on over to the Coin Bureau merch store and pick up some stylish crypto swag. I've got dozens of tees and hoodies, including the one you see on me. You can find the links to all this stuff in the video description. Can't miss it. That's all I've got for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the ride, and I'll see you on the other side.